Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The ballroom glowed under chandeliers, a cascade of golden light spilling over silk-draped tables and the swirl of Amara's white gown. Her laughter rang like a bell as Daniel spun her across the dance floor, his tuxedo sharp against her softness. The wedding was a masterpiece. Hundreds of guests, a live orchestra, and a cake that towered like a sugar monument. Lagos elite clapped and toasted, their glasses clinking with champagne. But as the final dance ended, a shadow fell over the joy. Daniel's mother, Mrs. Ifeoma Okoye, stood at the edge of the crowd, her lips a tight line, her eyes cold as steel. She wore a crimson gown, regal but severe, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Amara caught her gaze and felt a chill, like a breeze from an open grave. She squeezed Daniel's hand, expecting him to smile back, but he was already turning, drawn by his mother's silent command. "Daniel, a word," Mrs. Okoye said, her voice low, slicing through the music's fading notes. She didn't look at Amara. Didn't acknowledge the bride. "Now, mother." Daniel's brow furrowed, but he followed her to a corner of the ballroom, where shadows clung like secrets. Amara stood alone, her veil catching the light. Guests swirled around her, oblivious, but her heart thudded. Something was wrong. She watched as Mrs. Okoye leaned close to Daniel, her hand gripping his arm. His face changed, first confusion, then shock, then something darker. Amara took a step forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor, but a guest grabbed her for a photo, and the moment slipped away. In the corner, Mrs. Okoye's whisper was venom. "I will disown you if you don't divorce her, Daniel. Tonight. End this farce, or you lose everything." Daniel's eyes widened. "Mother, what are you talking about? This is my wedding. Amara is my wife." "She is a mistake," Mrs. Okoye hissed. "You don't know what she is. What her family is. Divorce her, or you're no son of mine." "Mother, you're not making sense. What has Amara done? Tell me." But Mrs. Okoye turned, her gown sweeping the floor like a storm cloud. "You'll see," she said, and vanished into the crowd. Daniel stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking into him. Across the room, Amara met his eyes, her smile faltering. The orchestra played on, but the magic was gone. The Parisian hotel room smelled of lavender and old wood, its balcony overlooking the Seine's silver ripple. Amara had dreamed of this, her and Daniel, hand in hand, lost in love under the Eiffel Tower's glow. But the dream was crumbling. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone, his jaw tight. He hadn't touched her since the wedding 2 days ago. No kisses, no laughter. Just silence. "Daniel, what's wrong?" Amara sat beside him, her silk nightgown brushing his arm. "You've been like this since the reception. Did I do something?" He flinched, as if her voice stung. "It's not you," he said, but his eyes didn't meet hers. "It's work. Stress. Work." Amara's voice sharpened. "We're in Paris, Daniel. On our honeymoon. You're not even looking at me." He stood abruptly, crossing to the balcony. The city lights painted his face in gold and shadow. "I just need time, Amara. Please." Her heart twisted. She'd known Daniel for 3 years, his warm smiles, his easy charm, the way he'd proposed under a mango tree in her father's garden, promising forever. This wasn't him. She followed him to the balcony, her bare feet cold on the stone. "Talk to me," she pleaded. "You're scaring me." He turned, and for a moment, she saw it, pain, raw and deep, in his eyes. "I can't," he whispered. "Not yet." That night, Amara woke to a sound, soft, choked sobs. She slipped from the bed, following the noise to the bathroom. The door was ajar, and there was Daniel, slumped on the tile floor, his face buried in his hands, crying like a child. "Daniel!" She knelt beside him, pulling him into her arms. "What's happening? Please, tell me." He shook his head, his voice hoarse. "I don't know what to do, Amara. I don't know how to fix this." "Fix what?" Her voice rose, desperate. "Is it your mother? Did she say something?" His silence was answer enough. Amara's stomach dropped. Mrs. Okoye had never liked her, always polite, but cold, her smiles like thin ice. But this was something else. Something darker. Ifeoma Okoye knelt beside her husband's grave, the earth still fresh, the headstone gleaming under the Lagos sun. Her fingers traced his name, Chukwudi Okoye, etched in marble. "I will never let that girl destroy this family," she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. In her hand was a photograph, its edges curling from age. A young woman's face, smiling, innocent. Amara's mother, Ebel. Ifeoma struck a match and held it to the photo. The flames devoured Ebel's smile, turning it to ash. "Never," she said again, as if the grave could hear her vow. Present day. Amara couldn't shake the image of Daniel crying. Back in Lagos, their new apartment felt too big, too quiet. Daniel was at work, his excuse for avoiding her, and Amara sat on the couch, scrolling through wedding photos on her phone. Her smile in those pictures felt like a stranger's. She paused on one, Mrs. Okoye, standing behind them, her eyes fixed on Amara with something like hatred. "Why do you hate me?" Amara murmured, zooming in on the photo. She tried to win Mrs. Okoye over, brought her flowers, cooked for family dinners, asked about her childhood. Nothing worked. The doorbell rang, startling her. It was a delivery, a small package, no sender's name. Inside was a single item, a locket, old and tarnished, with the initials E.O. engraved on it. Amara's breath caught. Ebel Okoye. Her mother's maiden name was Ebel Okafor, but could it be? She called her mother immediately. "Mama, did you ever know the Okoyes?" "Before I met Daniel." Ebel's voice was hesitant. "The Okoyes? Why do you ask?" "I found something. A locket with your initials. And Daniel's mother, she's acting strange." Silence stretched on the line. Then, softly, "Amara, leave the past alone. Some things are better forgotten." But Amara couldn't let it go. Not now. Daniel's childhood home was a mansion of marble and glass, its halls lined with portraits of stern-faced Okoyes. Amara had come to pick up a box of Daniel's old books, but the house felt like a museum of secrets. Mrs. Okoye was away, thank God, but the housekeeper, Mama Ngozi, watched Amara with kind but wary eyes. "Be quick, child," Mama Ngozi said. "Madam doesn't like people in her son's old room." Amara nodded, climbing the stairs to Daniel's childhood bedroom. The room was frozen in time, posters of football stars, a desk cluttered with pens. She found the box of books, but as she lifted it, a drawer in the desk slid open. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, addressed to Chukwudi. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting was elegant, feminine. "Chukwudi, you can't keep running from this. Ebel knows the truth, and she won't stay silent. Meet me, or I'll tell Ifeoma everything." No signature. Amara's heart raced. Ebel. Her mother. She stuffed the letter into her bag, guilt and curiosity warring inside her. Downstairs, Mama Ngozi was waiting. "You found what you needed?" the housekeeper asked, her eyes narrowing. "Yes," Amara lied, clutching the bag. "Just books." That night, she showed the letter to Daniel. He read it in silence, his face pale. "This is about your mother?" he asked finally. "I don't know," Amara said. "But I think your mother does." Daniel stood outside his mother's study, the letter burning a hole in his pocket. Amara had begged him to confront her, but his heart pounded with dread. He knocked, and Mrs. Okoye's voice called, "Come in." She sat at her desk, a queen in her domain, surrounded by leather-bound books and a portrait of his late father. "Daniel," she said, her smile thin, "you've been distant." He didn't sit. "Mother, what's this?" He slid the letter across the desk. Her face didn't change, but her fingers tightened around her pen. "Where did you get this?" Amara found it. "In my old room. It mentions her mother, Ebel." "What's going on?" Mrs. Okoye stood, her movements slow, deliberate. "Ebel was a nobody," she said. "A maid who worked for us years ago. She tried to ruin this family." "Ruin how?" Daniel's voice rose. "Mother, you told me to divorce Amara. You threatened to disown me." "Why?" "Because of something her mother did." Mrs. Okoye's eyes flashed. Ebel stole something from us. Something precious. I won't let her daughter do the same. What did she steal? Daniel demanded. Money. Jewelry. Tell me. But his mother turned away, staring at the portrait of his father. You wouldn't understand, she whispered. You were too young. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. I'm not a child anymore, Mother. Amara is my wife. If you can't accept her, you'll lose me. Mrs. Okoye's lips trembled, but her voice was steel. Then you've made your choice. He left, the door slamming behind him. Outside, the night was heavy with rain, mirroring the storm in his heart. Amara was waiting at home, her eyes searching his. What did she say? Amara asked, her voice small. Daniel pulled her close, the letter still in his pocket. She said your mother stole something. But I don't care about the past. I care about us. Amara nodded, but fear gnawed at her. What had her mother done? And why was Mrs. Okoye so determined to tear them apart? The Okoye family brunch was a grand affair, held in the sprawling garden of their Lagos estate. Bougainvillea spilled over trellises, and a long table gleamed with crystal and silver. Amara wore a yellow sundress, hoping the bright color would mask her unease, but Mrs. Okoye's presence loomed like a storm cloud. Daniel sat beside Amara, his hand on hers under the table, but his eyes darted nervously to his mother, who presided at the table's head, her crimson lipstick sharp as a blade. The air buzzed with small talk, cousins discussing business deals, aunts gossiping about Lagos society. Amara tried to smile, but the letter she'd found burned in her mind. Ebel. Betrayal. Stolen secrets. She sipped her juice, her throat tight. Uncle Chitty, Daniel's jovial great-uncle, leaned toward her, his glasses glinting. You look just like her, you know, he said, voice warm with nostalgia. Kem. Same eyes, same grace. Amara froze, her glass halfway to her lips. Kem. Who's that? The table fell silent. Mrs. Okoye's fork clattered against her plate. Her face was a mask of fury, her eyes locked on Chitty. You're mistaken, she said, her voice cutting like glass. Amara is nothing like anyone we know. Chitty blinked, confused. But I could swear. Enough. Mrs. Okoye stood, her chair scraping the stone patio. We're done here. She stormed into the house, leaving a stunned silence. Daniel squeezed Amara's hand. What was that about? He whispered. I don't know, Amara murmured, but her heart raced. Another name, another secret. She glanced at Chitty, who was muttering apologies, his face flushed. The other guests avoided her eyes, as if she'd unearthed a ghost. Later, as they drove home, Amara turned to Daniel. Who's Nkem? Why did your mother react like that? Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. I've never heard that name before. But I'll find out. I promise. Amara nodded, but dread coiled in her stomach. The Okoyes were hiding something, and it wasn't just about her mother. Amara's mother, Ebel, lived in a modest bungalow on Lagos outskirts, its walls painted a faded blue. Amara hadn't visited in weeks, too caught up in the whirlwind of her marriage and Mrs. Okoye's venom. But the locket, the letter, and now the name Kem pushed her to seek answers. Ebel was in the kitchen, kneading dough for Puff Puff, her hands dusted with flour. She smiled at Amara, but her eyes were wary. You look troubled, my dear. Mama, I need to know about you and the Okoyes. Amara set the locket on the table, its tarnished surface catching the light. This has your initials. And I found a letter mentioning you. What happened between you and Daniel's family? Ebel's hands stilled. She wiped them on her apron, her face tight. I told you, Amara. Leave the past alone. I can't. Amara's voice cracked. Daniel's mother wants me gone. She's threatening him, Mama. I need the truth. Ebel sighed, her shoulders sagging. She led Amara to the attic, a dusty space crammed with boxes and cobwebs. From a locked trunk, she pulled a small, leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed. This was mine, she said, handing it to Amara. I was a maid for the Okoyes, long ago. I wrote everything here. Amara opened the diary, her fingers trembling. The first entry was dated 1998. Mr. Okoye is kind, but his wife watches me like a hawk. Today, she accused me of stealing a necklace. I didn't touch it, but she screamed, said I'd regret crossing her. Amara looked up, her throat tight. You worked for them. Why didn't you tell me? Ebel's eyes glistened. Because it broke me, Amara. I left that house and never looked back. But if you're marrying into that family, you need to know what they're capable of. That night, Amara read the diary under a single lamp, each page a knife to her heart. Ebel described late-night arguments, Mr. Okoye's wandering eyes, and Mrs. Okoye's growing paranoia. One entry chilled her. I saw something I shouldn't have. If Ifeoma finds out, she'll destroy me. Daniel sat in his office, the city skyline dark beyond the window. His phone buzzed with emails, but he couldn't focus. His mother's ultimatum echoed in his mind, and now Amara's discovery of the diary added weight to his fears. He loved Amara, her laugh, her courage, the way she made him feel alive. But his mother was the anchor of his world, the woman who'd raised him alone after his father's death. How could he choose? The door opened, and his assistant, Tund, poked his head in. Sir, your accounts, there's a problem. What problem? Daniel snapped, his patience thin. They're frozen. All of them. I called the bank, and they said it was authorized by Mrs. Ifeoma Okoye. Daniel's blood ran cold. He grabbed his phone and dialed his mother. What are you doing, Mother? Freezing my accounts. Her voice was calm, almost smug. You're my son, Daniel. I control the family wealth. If you insist on staying with that girl, you'll have nothing. This is insane, he shouted. You can't punish me for loving my wife. Then choose wisely, she said, and hung up. Daniel drove home in a daze, his hands shaking. Amara was waiting, the diary open on the coffee table. Did you talk to her? She asked, her eyes searching his. She froze my accounts, he said, his voice hollow. She's trying to force me to leave you. Amara's face crumpled. Daniel, I don't want to tear you from your family. Maybe we should. No, he grabbed her hands, his voice fierce. I chose you, Amara. I'll fight for us. But as they held each other, doubt crept in. Could love survive when blood was determined to break it? Amara woke to a notification on her phone, a message from an unknown number. Her hand shook as she read it. Leave him, or his blood will be on your hands. Attached was a photo of Daniel leaving his office, taken from a distance, his face clear in the evening light. She dropped the phone, her heart pounding. This wasn't just Mrs. Okoye's cold disdain, this was a threat. She called Daniel, her voice trembling. Someone's watching you. They sent me a message. They said, they'll hurt you if I don't leave. Daniel arrived home in minutes, his face pale. He read the message, his jaw tight. This is too far, he said. We're going to the police. At the station, the officer was skeptical. No specific threat, no evidence of who sent it. Could be a prank. But Amara saw the fear in Daniel's eyes, mirroring her own. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat on the balcony, the Lego skyline glittering coldly. Was it Mrs. Okoye? Someone else? The diary mentioned secrets, things Ebel had seen. Had Amara inherited her mother's enemies? Amara, Daniel said, joining her. We'll figure this out. I won't let anyone hurt you. She leaned into him, but the message burned in her mind. His blood will be on your hands. Daniel's collapse came without warning. They were at a charity gala, Amara in a sapphire gown, Daniel charming the crowd. Then he clutched his chest, his face gray, and crumpled to the floor. Amara's scream cut through the music as guests rushed to help. At the hospital, Amara paced the waiting room, her hands twisting the hem of her dress. The doctor emerged, his face grim. Stress-induced panic attack. He's stable, but he needs rest. No more pressure. Amara nodded, guilt gnawing at her. The threats, his mother's ultimatum, the frozen accounts, it was too much. She slipped into Daniel's room, where he lay pale against the white sheets. His eyes fluttered open. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't want you to see me like this. She took his hand, tears falling. "This isn't your fault. It's her. It's all of this." An older nurse entered, her face kind but worn. She paused, staring at Amara. "You're Ebel's girl, aren't you?" she said softly. Amara's breath caught. "You knew my mother." The nurse nodded, checking Daniel's chart but keeping her voice low. "I worked with her, years ago, at the Okoye house. You're just like her. Brave. Too brave for your own good." "What do you mean?" Amara asked, her voice urgent. The nurse glanced at the door, then leaned closer. "Ebel saw things in that house. Things she wasn't meant to. Be careful, child. Some secrets are worth killing for." Daniel stirred, his eyes meeting Amara's. "What's she talking about?" Amara didn't answer. The nurse's words echoed with the diary's warnings, the letter's hints, and the anonymous threat. The truth was close, but it was dangerous, and it might destroy them all. The hospital room was dim, the beeping of Daniel's monitor a steady pulse in the silence. Amara sat by his bed, clutching the diary, its pages worn from her constant rereading. The nurse's warning, "Some secrets are worth killing for," echoed in her mind, intertwining with the anonymous threat and the name Kem. Daniel's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow, but his hand gripped hers tightly, as if anchoring himself to her. She hadn't told him about the nurse's words. Not yet. He was too fragile, his collapse a stark reminder of the toll his mother's ultimatum was taking. But the truth couldn't wait. When Daniel woke, Amara's resolve hardened. She called her mother, Ebel, and demanded a meeting. At Ebel's bungalow, the air was thick with tension. Ebel sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded, her face etched with regret. Daniel stood by the window, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Amara placed the diary between them, open to the entry about secrets Ebel wasn't meant to see. "Mama, what did you see in the Okoye house?" Amara asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "Mrs. Okoye hates me because of you. She's destroying Daniel's life. Tell us the truth." Ebel's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I was young, Amara. Barely 20, working as a maid for the Okoyes. Chukwudi, Daniel's father, was kind to me. Too kind. Ifeoma noticed. She thought I was trying to seduce him, but it wasn't true. Then one night, I saw something." "What?" Daniel's voice was sharp, cutting through the room. "What did you see?" Ebel hesitated, then spoke softly. "Chukwudi was in his study, arguing with a woman. Not Ifeoma. Someone else. They were close. Too close. I heard her say she'd tell Ifeoma everything unless he paid her. The next day, Ifeoma accused me of stealing a necklace. I think she knew about the affair and blamed me to cover it up." Amara's breath caught. "You saw an affair? And you never told anyone?" "I tried," Ebel said, her voice breaking. "I went to a lawyer, accused Chukwudi of misconduct, not the affair, but how he treated me after I saw it. He'd corner me, threaten me to stay quiet. The case went to court, but the Okoyes buried it. Their money, their power. I was nobody." Daniel's face was pale. "My father had an affair? And my mother blamed you?" Ebel nodded. "Ifeoma's been carrying that pain for decades. And now, Amara, she sees you as me, a threat to her family's name." Daniel sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. "Why didn't you tell me, Amara? Before we got married?" "I didn't know." Amara's voice rose, desperate. "Mama kept this from me too. But Daniel, this isn't about us. We love each other. We can fight this." He looked at her, his eyes hollow. "Can we? She's my mother. And now, my father's a lie too." Amara couldn't sleep. The diary, Ebel's story, and Daniel's pain churned in her mind. She needed proof, something to confront Mrs. Okoye with, something to end this war. At dawn, she drove to the Lagos State Archives, a dusty building where old court records mouldered in forgotten files. She'd found a reference in the diary to a case number, scribbled in Ebel's frantic handwriting. The clerk, a bored man with thick glasses, sighed as he led her to the basement. "These files are ancient," he said, pulling a box from a sagging shelf. "What's the case number?" Amara read it aloud, her heart pounding. The clerk flipped through folders, then paused. This one's sealed. Restricted access. Sealed. Amara's voice trembled. Why? He shrugged. Money. Power. Happens all the time with big families. Amara slipped him a wad of naira, her hands shaking. Please. I need to know. He glanced around, then slid the file across the table. Inside was a single document, a court order dismissing Ebel's case against Chukwudi Okoye. The charges, harassment and coercion. The dismissal cited insufficient evidence and a settlement. A handwritten note was clipped to the page. Payment made to EO case closed. Amara's blood ran cold. Her mother had been paid off. Or threatened. Or both. She took photos of the file, her mind racing. Mrs. Okoye had buried this to protect her husband's name, but why target Amara now? That evening, she showed the file to Daniel. He stared at the photos, his face a mask of betrayal. My father did this. And my mother covered it up. We need to confront her, Amara said. She's using the past to destroy our future. Daniel nodded, but his eyes were distant. I need to know everything, he said. There's more she's not telling us. The confrontation with Mrs. Okoye was a disaster waiting to happen, but Amara and Daniel couldn't wait. They arrived at the Okoye mansion unannounced, the court file in Amara's bag. Mama Ngozi, the housekeeper, let them in, her eyes nervous. Madam's in the parlor, she whispered. Be careful. Mrs. Okoye sat on a velvet sofa, a glass of wine in her hand. Her face hardened when she saw them. What do you want? She asked, her voice icy. Daniel held up the court file. We know about the case, Mother. Ebel's accusations. Father's threats. Why did you bury it? Mrs. Okoye's glass trembled, but her voice was steady. You think you understand? You know nothing. Then tell us. Amara snapped, her patience gone. Why do you hate me? What did my mother really do? Mrs. Okoye stood, her eyes blazing. Your mother was a liar. She accused my husband to extort us. But that's not the worst of it. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. You're his daughter, Amara. Chukwudi's. From his affair. The room spun. Amara gripped Daniel's arm, her legs weak. That's impossible, she whispered. My father was. And nobody, Mrs. Okoye cut in. A man we paid to claim you. Ebel was pregnant when she left our employ. Chukwudi confessed it to me before he died. Daniel's face was gray. Amara. My sister? No. Amara's voice broke. She's lying, Daniel. She's trying to tear us apart. But doubt shadowed his eyes. Mrs. Okoye's words were a poison, seeping into their love. Get a DNA test, she said, her smile cold. You'll see. That night, Amara packed a bag, tears streaming down her face. I can't stay here, she told Daniel. Not until we know the truth. He reached for her, but she pulled away. Amara, please. We'll figure this out. But she was already out the door, the weight of a possible sibling bond crushing her heart. The DNA test was a cold, clinical process, a swab, a vial, a wait that felt like eternity. Amara stayed with Ebel, avoiding Daniel's calls. Her mother tried to comfort her, but Amara's trust was fraying. Did you lie to me? She asked Ebel one night, her voice raw. Was Chukwudi my father? Ebel's face crumpled. No, Amara. Your father was a man I loved. He left when I was pregnant. I never told the Okoyes anything about you. Ifeoma's lying to hurt you. Then why didn't you fight harder? Amara cried. Why let them bury your case? I was scared, Ebel admitted. They had money, power. I had you to protect. Daniel, meanwhile, spiraled. He stopped going to work, his apartment a mess of takeout containers and unanswered messages. He visited Amara, standing outside Ebel's bungalow, begging her to talk. I don't care what the test says, he said through the door. I love you, Amara. You're my wife. She didn't answer, her heart breaking. If they were siblings, their love was a sin. If they weren't, Mrs. Okoye's lies had already poisoned them. The test results arrived a week later. Amara and Daniel met at a neutral cafe, the envelope between them. Neither spoke as Amara opened it, her hands shaking. No genetic match. Not siblings. Relief flooded Amara, but anger followed. She lied, she said, her voice trembling. Your mother lied to destroy us. Daniel's face darkened. I'm done with her, he said. No more games. Amara and Daniel returned to Ebel, demanding the full story. Ebel sat them down, her hands clasped tightly. Your father was a driver for the Okoyes, she said. His name was Samuel. We fell in love, but Ifeoma found out. She was furious, not because of me, but because Chukwudi was having an affair with someone else. A woman named Nkem. Amara's breath caught. Nkem. The name Uncle Chidi mentioned. Ebel nodded. Ifeoma paid Samuel to leave, to protect her husband's secret. When I got pregnant, she assumed you were Chukwudi's. She sent me away with money to keep quiet. I never corrected her. It was safer that way. Daniel's voice was low, dangerous. So my mother knew about my father's affair with Nkem, not you. And she let you take the blame. Yes, Ebel said. Nkem disappeared. I don't know what happened to her. Amara's mind raced. The diary, the court case, the locket, it all pointed to Nkem, the real threat to the Okoye legacy. Mrs. Okoye had built a web of lies to protect her family's name, and Amara was caught in it. We're going to expose her, Amara said, her voice fierce. No more secrets. Daniel nodded, but his eyes were haunted. What if exposing her destroys everything? The Okoye mansion felt like a mausoleum, its marble halls echoing with the weight of secrets uncovered. Amara and Daniel stood in the parlor, the court file and DNA results spread on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. Mrs. Ifeoma Okoye sat across from them, her face a mask of defiance, but her hands trembled in her lap. The truth about Nkem, Samuel, and the buried court case hung in the air, thick and suffocating. You lied to us, Daniel said, his voice low but sharp. You let Ebel take the blame for father's affair. You tried to ruin my marriage to protect a dead man's name. Mrs. Okoye's eyes flashed. Everything I did was for this family, Daniel. You think you understand love? I protected our legacy from scandal, from ruin. By destroying us. Amara's voice shook with fury. You froze Daniel's accounts, sent threats, told me I was his sister. You're not protecting a legacy, you're protecting your pride. Mrs. Okoye's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, her composure cracked. Her eyes darted to the portrait of Chukwudi Okoye on the wall, his stern face a silent judge. You don't know what it was like, she whispered. Nkem threatened to expose him. She wanted money, power. I had to make her disappear. Daniel leaned forward, his voice cold. What did you do to her, mother? Mrs. Okoye's face crumpled. She sank back into the sofa, her hands covering her eyes. I paid her to leave. Gave her enough to start a new life. But Ebel. I thought she was part of it. When she accused Chukwudi, I thought she was trying to destroy us too. Amara's heart pounded. And me? Why punish me for my mother's fight? Mrs. Okoye looked at her, tears streaking her face. You look like her. Like Nkem. Every time I saw you, I saw her threat, her betrayal. I couldn't let you take my son. Before Daniel could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Mama Ngozi entered, her face pale. Madam, there are reporters outside. They know about the court case. Amara's stomach dropped. Someone had leaked the story, likely from the archives clerk or a disgruntled family member. By morning, Lagos tabloids screamed headlines, Okoye family scandal unearthed, affair, cover-up, and a maid's revenge. Mrs. Okoye locked herself in her room, refusing to speak, her empire crumbling under the weight of her lies. Amara returned to her mother's bungalow, seeking refuge from the media storm. Ebel was in the garden, tending to her roses, her face calm despite the chaos. Amara sat beside her, the weight of the past weeks heavy on her shoulders. Mama, how did you survive this? Amara asked, her voice soft. The Okoyes crushed you, and you still built a life. Ebel smiled, her hands stained with earth. I had you, Amara. You were my reason to keep going. But there's something I never told you. She led Amara to the attic, where the old trunk still sat. Ebel opened it, pulling out a velvet pouch. Inside was a gold bracelet, intricately carved with the Okoye family crest. Chikwudi gave this to me, Ebel said. Not as a lover, but as an apology. He said it was mine by right, for what I endured. I think he meant for you to have it. Amara held the bracelet, its weight grounding her. This proves you were part of their world. Not a thief, not a liar. A survivor. Ebel nodded. Take it to them, Amara. Show them you belong. That evening, Amara showed the bracelet to Daniel. His eyes widened. I've seen this in old photos. It's an heirloom, passed down for generations. If father gave it to Ebel. It means she was more than a maid, Amara finished. She was someone he trusted, someone he wronged. Daniel's jaw tightened. We're ending this, Amara. No more secrets. The media frenzy had turned the Okoye name into a spectacle, but Daniel and Amara refused to hide. They stood on the balcony of their apartment, the Lagos skyline glittering below. Daniel took Amara's hand, his eyes fierce with determination. I don't care about the money, the name, or the legacy, he said. I choose you, Amara. I always will. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Even after everything. Especially after everything. He pulled a small box from his pocket, a new ring, simple but radiant, not the one from their first wedding. Marry me again. Not for tradition, not for family. For us. Amara's heart swelled. Yes, she whispered, slipping the ring onto her finger. 1,000 times yes. They planned a quiet ceremony, no grand ballroom or elite guests. Just them, their love, and a few trusted friends. But the past wasn't done with them. Hours before the ceremony, Amara received another anonymous message. You'll never be one of us. Attached was a photo of the bracelet, taken from Ebel's attic. Amara's blood ran cold. Someone was still watching, still threatening. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She showed the message to Daniel, her voice steady. We're done running. Let's face this together. He nodded, his hand tight around hers. Together. The second wedding was held in a small garden by the sea, the waves a soft hymn under the setting sun. Amara wore a flowing white dress, no veil, her hair loose and crowned with flowers. She walked herself down the aisle, her eyes locked on Daniel, who stood waiting in a simple suit, his smile brighter than the sunset. Their friends, Lola, Amara's childhood friend, and Tund, Daniel's loyal assistant, cheered as they exchanged vows. I choose you, Amara said, her voice clear. Not because of your name or your past, but because you're my home. Daniel's eyes glistened. I choose you, Amara. Through every storm, every secret. You're my forever. No Okoyes attended. Not Mrs. Okoye, not Uncle Chitty, not even Mom Ngozi. But Amara didn't care. This was their moment, reclaimed from the shadows of the past. As they kissed, the crowd erupted, and for the first time in months, Amara felt free. That night, as they danced under the stars, Daniel whispered, We're stronger than their lies. Amara nodded, but the anonymous message lingered in her mind. Someone was still out there, watching. She pushed the thought away, focusing on Daniel's warmth. For now, love was enough. 5 years later, Amara and Daniel stood outside a modest house in a quiet Lagos suburb. Their daughter, Ifeananya, squirmed in Amara's arms, her tiny hands clutching a stuffed elephant. The media storm had faded, the Okoye name no longer a headline. Daniel had built a new life, running a small tech startup, free from his mother's wealth. Amara taught at a local school, her mother's bracelet a constant on her wrist. Mrs. Okoye lived alone now, her mansion sold to pay legal fees from the scandal. The family had fractured, some sided with Daniel, others with her. Amara hadn't seen her since the confrontation, but Daniel had received a letter. I'm sorry. Please come. The door opened, and Mrs. Okoye appeared, older, frilier, her eyes red from crying. She looked at Ifeananya, then at Amara, and her face softened. She's beautiful, she whispered. Daniel's voice was guarded. Why did you ask us here, mother? Mrs. Okoye gestured them inside. The house was small, cluttered with photos of Daniel as a child. I was wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I let fear and pride ruin everything. I thought I was protecting you, but I was protecting myself. Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to hate this woman, but seeing her so broken stirred something else. Pity, perhaps forgiveness. You hurt us, Amara said. But you're her grandmother. She deserves to know you. Mrs. Okoye reached for Ifeanyi, who giggled as her grandmother's trembling hands touched her cheek. Tears fell down Mrs. Okoye's face. I don't deserve this, she said. Daniel's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. You have to earn it, mother. No more lies. She nodded, holding Ifeanyi close. Amara met Daniel's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. The past would always be there, but it no longer held them captive. As they left, Amara took Daniel's hand, Ifeanyi asleep on her shoulder. We won, she said softly. Love always wins.